Welcome to today's episode of the Declutter Hub podcast, your channel for super easy, no-nonsense advice on how to declutter and organise your home. Please welcome your hosts, professional organisers Ingrid Jansen and Leslie Spellman.
Hello and welcome listeners to episode 142 of the Declutter Hub podcast. I'm Ingrid.
And I'm Leslie.
If you have clutter and want to sort it out, this is the show for you. Now, in today's episode, Leslie and I are talking about how to get your family on board with decluttering. But before we dive in, we wanted to remind our listeners we are doing our Managing Mementos Masterclass next week on Thursday, the 24th of June. You can still sign up and join us for this fabulous masterclass. Just go to declutterhub.com/MMM and sign up and make sure you're there.
Not an easy topic, is it, Ingrid? How to get your family on board with decluttering? It's like that age-old question, really, isn't it? It's like definitely something that people struggle with generally, isn't it? I think actually it's one of the things that when people join our Facebook group, we ask a question about what your biggest struggle is with decluttering. And that is quite often high on the list, isn't it?
I know. One of the life's biggest frustrations. I'm all ready to declutter, but nobody else in my house is actually on the same path with me. They're all still making a mess, and there's me trying to change my life. And how do I get people on board here?
Now, before we get started, we're going to put a disclaimer in saying we can't mediate in families and fix things, unfortunately, but we are going to try and give you our words of wisdom to help you along the way with your family.
Yes, because Leslie, let's be honest here. Just because you've seen the light and you want to declutter, that doesn't mean that everybody else will kind of go, yay, I'm in, I'm going to join you. They're probably kind of rolling your eyes a little bit and thinking, oh, here we go. We've got a new thing that we're doing. And don't have expectations that people will just come on board overnight. It can take a long time before people get on board, don't they?
Yeah, definitely. And I think there's a frustration, isn't there, sometimes with the rest of the family. I'm not saying that this is the case for everybody, but if you tend to have been a cluttered person most of your life and lived in quite a chaotic home, then people have got used to that, haven't they? They've got used to that kind of chaos. And as you rightly said, Ingrid, they don't really believe you that you're on this path towards change.
Yeah, and I think, they've probably heard you say before, it's just so messy and I want to just all to change and we need to work together. And they're probably going to go, yeah. We've seen it, done it, been there before. 2 days, we were all frantically involved. And then it all kind of waned off and things kind of fell back into how it was before. And it's hard to get the troops mustered, isn't it? To kind of go, let's do this, people. Come on. I've seen the light. This is the goal. I want to have a decluttered house. I have seen the light of where I want to go. And this is my vision. This is my dream. But to get everybody else going is not an easy task.
It just reminds, when you're saying that the rest of your family think, oh, it's going to last for 2 days and then it's going to wane. So every time we go on holiday in the summer, if we go with the whole family, I'm like, right, that's it. As soon as we get back, we're going on healthy eating, no more drinking, no unhealthy snacks. And all the kids, you can see them rolling their eyes. Oh, here we go again. Mum's on one. And it does literally last like a week. Do you know what I mean? And then we revert to type. But yeah, it's more difficult with a decluttering journey because that is a long-term vision, isn't it, for a lot of people? And it's really tricky when people are not on the same page of you. So why should we try then, Ingrid? So what can we do about it?
Well, I think, Leslie, it always starts with yourself. I mean, if you want things to change, you're going to have to start with yourself and be realistic and go, you know what? I really want to do this. I can't wait for other people to join me. I'm going to do this. And you really will over time see people go, oh, this is actually really nice. I really enjoy this. I can find stuff, but don't expect it in the beginning. Start with yourself. Lead by example. And We get this question all the time, don't we? And we see it. I mean, the perfect example was one of the people who did our wardrobe challenge a little while back, and they're like, "Wow, my husband was so impressed," and they also started to tidy up their clothes, and they also kind of went, "Oh, I've got some old shirts here. I think they should be decluttered," and oh, here is some stuff I no longer wear. It starts to rub off, but it can be a while.
Yeah, it's interesting that you say that, because obviously we use our cycle of success that we spoke about a few podcasts ago, don't we, with our decluttering. And it's almost as if your partner gets to the end bit of the cycle of success, which is the finishing part of it, sees the result and then gets on board. But they don't really want to be part of the journey. They don't really want to be part of the rest of the cycle, all the hard stuff, the actual decluttering and thinking and organizing and categorizing and preparing and all that. They don't want to be part of that. But once it's finished, then all of a sudden their light bulbs go on a little bit, don't they? And they're like, oh, actually, I quite like living in a less chaotic house. I quite like having less stuff around. I quite like spending less money. I can see where this is going. So we almost need to get to the end point of your journey before other people feel inspired.
Yes, Leslie, that is absolutely true. And the same is happening within our membership as well, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. And it takes a while. A lot of people within our membership are there for a while, but slowly but surely, all of a sudden, other people in the family are coming on board. We're not just talking about husbands, partners, wives here. We're talking about kids as well. They're like, actually, I wasn't really bothered, but now that I see a different way, I'm actually going to come on board. And so I guess what we're saying in a nutshell is that it's not naturally going to happen, and people in your family are probably going to need to see the results before they decide whether or not they're going to come on board.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing, isn't it? People want to be part of success. So when they see you being successful and you going, I've done this drawer, I've done this cupboard, I've done my clothes, and they're like, oh, I want some of what she's having because this is really nice. And we've seen it indeed happening with people who have kids as well, that suddenly the kids are like, oh, I can help, or oh, this is really cool, or oh, this is really good for the environment. A lot of kids, are very connected to the environment. Oh, this is better for when we can recycle more and we've got a system. And now I see the benefits of this instead of, oh, we have to declutter for hours and this is no fun. But suddenly you see the cogs turning in your family members, in your home, and going, this is actually really good. Kids, I think you see it a lot with, I can find my stuff, I can find my toys. A lot of the partners normally look at, oh, this is financially quite interesting, or oh, we're spending less money, which is good. We can have less debt. So it's a combination of things, isn't it? And it can be different for each person.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, if we think about kids in particular, they tend to have followed our lead in terms of the standards that we have at home. And so why would they want to break out of it? Because they feel like it's almost your domain and you're the one that's setting the tone of what's going on. And it needs that shift to happen for them to say, actually, I quite like that. So no, it's really interesting. It's very hard. It can be very frustrating as well if you're on this journey and everybody's undoing all your good work. That's the problem, isn't it? So you're decluttering, and a lot, we're talking mainly about the decluttering process here, aren't we? Rather than actual keeping things tidy every day, which is a whole nother podcast, which we'll come to at some point. But yeah, I think it's, that desire for less, that desire for organization and simplicity is going to rub off in the end, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so. Absolutely. And I've seen it a lot as well when I've been working with clients that sometimes the partners are a bit unsure. Oh, like, why is this lady here? Why is she helping us in our house? But as soon as they start to see they can actually walk in a room without things falling over, they can find their items again. It's easier to cook a meal, or it's easier to put laundry in the laundry bin, and all of those things. They suddenly go, oh, actually, I'm now seeing why we're doing this and why this is a good idea. And then suddenly this little bag with stuff, I've been decluttering a little bit. Can this go into your car as well to the charity shop? And you see then the person that I've been working with going, miracles. There are miracles happening here. This is amazing. Because I think it's really important when you're on a decluttering journey, start with your own stuff first. Don't say to other people, You all have to tidy up. You all have to declutter. It's all your stuff everywhere. And everybody's going to go, but it's all our stuff. It's chaos everywhere. So why do I suddenly have to do things? Well, it's never been really asked of me before, maybe, or maybe nobody cared, or maybe it's never been a priority. So if you are on a decluttering journey, start with your own stuff first and practice on yourself. How is this decluttering going? What are the hard parts to do and what are the easy parts to do?
I think it's interesting. It takes us into a very interesting debate, Ingrid, doesn't it? To talk about other people's stuff and whether that is in principle off limits when you're decluttering. That's another question that comes up quite often. We're talking about families coming on board. The easy thing to do would be to declutter their stuff for them in principle, wouldn't it? And then you can make decisions about other people's stuff. But that's a very dangerous game to play, isn't it? So even as professionals, we don't ever touch anybody else's stuff. And so the way to do that is, if you find, if we're talking about a home that's full of chaos or there's a lot of things out of place, then if you find somebody else's stuff in the middle of something that you're sorting out, put it to one side. Quite often people are quite happy to go through a kind of organized box of stuff and make decisions, but they don't want to do the rummaging and the sorting and the categorizing and all that kind of stuff. But they don't mind looking through one small box of stuff. So it's important to break it down into small chunks for other people in the same way that it is for ourselves, isn't it? So really important, if there's one thing that's like super important that you need to take away from this, is don't declutter somebody else's stuff just because that would be the easy thing to do. Whether that's kids, kids of a certain age, of course, you can make decisions for them, but once they get above the age is different depending on the child really, but definitely above that kind of 10-year-old category, then it's tricky to start thinking that you can make decisions for other people, because people have got their own emotions and their own attachments to things, haven't they?
Yeah, and I think on top of that, Leslie, it's like what you get if you declutter somebody else's stuff. They're going to go, well, hold on a minute. Why are you suddenly decluttering my stuff? Why don't you do your own stuff? And before you know it, there can really be an argument, while it's always better to do your own things first. When you do your own things first, you can make the decision what you feel is possible and what you can let go of and what needs to stay. If you start to make decisions for other people, you're taking away their control, and then it can get really frustrating. And then you get, well, where's this and where's that? Oh, you've thrown it away. You've thrown it away. Well, you might not have at all, because you might have put it somewhere that they can't find it. So there's already an argument before even the whole item is found. And I think that it's a slippery slope. Exactly. With small kids, of course, you're going to be involved as a parent in their items, and you need to teach them from when they're young. But if there are older children, or when you have your partner stuff there, let them do their own stuff.
Do you know what I find quite a lot as well? If somebody has lived with somebody that's full of clutter, they tend to think of their own stuff, albeit in our eyes, potentially clutter, as a collection. Do you know what I mean? So yeah, those kind of 400 CDs, that's not clutter. That's a collection of stuff, whatever that is. We get that all the time, don't we? Different people have different ideas about what clutter is. And when it's your stuff, you don't think of it as clutter. You think of it as a collection of very precious items, don't you? Yeah. So it's so important. It's so interesting to hear it in that way sometimes.
Yeah. And it's not only CDs, is it, Leslie? It's DVDs, it is trainers, it is books, it is tools, it is trains from when they were a child. It can be all sorts. And I think the person themselves really needs to make a mental leap of like, what do I want to happen with this stuff? Is it actually clutter? Is it actually a collection that needs to be better taken care of?
Yeah, I think in order to go on a decluttering journey, most of us have hit that kind of rock bottom feeling of overwhelm. And if your partner or your children are not feeling that, then why would they have the desire to actually go down that route?
Yeah, very true. Again, like we said before, just because you've seen the light doesn't mean that they feel they have to come aboard. They're just chilling. They're laying on the sofa, watching TV, reading a book, playing a game, and all of a sudden they're like pulled into action. They're like, well, this is not on my calendar or my diary today. You do what you got to do, but leave me in peace.
I know it's funny when I did a podcast with my children, didn't I? That kind of what have I learned from my mum? And they just all kept saying that I would drag them out of bed at 7 o'clock in the morning to declutter their bedrooms. I'm like, I don't ever remember dragging you out of bed to declutter your bedrooms, but I know that I will have been like, okay, kids, today's the day. Decluttering's on the agenda, and they're all like rolling their eyes and stuff. That definitely happens, but they just know that I'm a professional organizer. And so they know that's part of the process for me. Do you know what I mean? That's going to happen whether they like it or not. So let's think about some practical tips as well. So we've started on this decluttering journey. Is there anything at all that we can do to explain the process that we're going through?
Yeah, I think definitely. And that's not something that I think you should do like 5 minutes while you're washing up. I think if you're on a decluttering journey and you've got a goal in mind and a vision and a dream, and you've thought about how you're going to break those goals down, get a family meeting or sit them down and say, right, I really have thought about what I would love to happen here, and this is my plan. And I just want you to know what I'm up to. And I know this it might be a big shock to you, but this is my journey, my plan. I would love it if you come on board at some point, but I can imagine that you want to see my successes first. But I think you need to get them involved in that journey instead of suddenly getting 12 bin bags out and starting to throw stuff away without nobody knowing what is going on.
Yeah, I think it's important to share those goals as well, isn't it, Ingrid? To explain the journey, to explain perhaps how you've been feeling about it and why you suddenly want to make a change. And so, because if you just do it without knowing and they just think you're on a crazy sort of decluttering journey, then perhaps they won't understand. But if they understand the emotions that sit behind that and the overwhelm and stress that you're feeling, then they may be more likely to come on board, or at very least to understand. I think one of the things that we speak about all the time when we're talking about a decluttering project is we talk about preparation, and quite often you need family members involved in preparing for a project. And so it might be that yes, they're not going to come on your decluttering journey, but they may help in other ways. They may make the dinner while you're doing your decluttering journey. They might do those journeys to the recycling centre. They might take stuff to the charity shop for you. They might help you up and down a loft ladder. They might help you with the heavy lifting. So there's a number of ways that they can come on board with the decluttering journey without actually getting rid of their own stuff. So more about helping you with the practical aspects of the project.
Mm-hmm. And that I think is especially when the kids are a bit older. I mean, if the kids are younger, start these good habits early. Teach them young. Don't think I'll do it for them all the time. Get them involved in that decluttering. Because a lot of kids say, but if you say tidy up your room, they're like, but I've got no idea how. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm just going to shove some stuff under my bed, put some stuff away. So especially when they're small, you have to be then go, look here, put your dirty clothes here in the hamper. And this is a wrapper. So put that in the bin. And here is some Lego. Look, let's put it with the other Lego. And here's your soft toys. Let's put them together. So you need to explain what you're doing. And you can't expect everybody to declutter for hours on end. You probably have to start really, really small. 5 minutes here, 5 minutes there. Come on, let's go to your room. Let's gather all the plates and cups. Come on, let's open the curtains and open a window. Let some light in. Here, let's put all your books together. Do you see any books you no longer read? And really break down those tasks. And then you can build on that over time.
Are you trying to tell me that it's not normal behaviour to just pick 27 strewn items off the floor and shove it under the bed or underneath the clothes in a wardrobe? Is that not normal behaviour then, Ingrid? Because that's what I see regularly. And the fool that I am, I'm like, tidy bedroom. Oh, you've done a really nice job. And then the next time I go and put some clothes away, I'm like, oh, right. Okay. That's where those clothes are then. Everybody who's listening to this who's got teenagers is like, yep. That's the way that it goes.
I don't know, Leslie. Maybe I'm still blissfully unaware. I've got it all coming from me. I'm blissfully unaware. I'm still hopeful that all the years of, come on, let's do it together, is going to pay off at some point.
I know. Ingrid's like, yeah, here's a wrapper. Let's put it in the bin. I hope you're not talking about now. I think you're going to be so disappointed. I just feel... Oh, poor Ingrid. Never mind. What age are your kids now? 13 and 15 coming up.
Yeah.
Things are about to change. That's all I'm saying.
I'm still in my own little bubble, Leslie. I'm still in my own little bubble. I'm hoping it's all paid off, all the hard work so far.
But you know what? I'll tell you, my son, who's 25, who's moved out, his flat is immaculate. Well, it's immaculate when I go round, because they're so proud of their own space. And so they obviously know what to do. They just choose not to do it when they're in your house. I think that's the thing that works. But anyway, let's not start berating these children for being terrible children, but everybody knows that kind of stuff happens. But no, you're absolutely right. You've got to be consistent, haven't you? It's so easy, isn't it, to just kind of give up and do it for them. But I've done a little bit of that, as you'll see in that podcast that I spoke about with my children. I do have rules. I do have certain things that are non-negotiables with my children, but sometimes it's just easier to just do it yourself. Yeah. And that's not always the best way. But if you really do want to teach them, consistency is key. And leading by example, as you say, you need to teach them, you need to show them. It's really important. And then they pick up these habits that you have in your life that they will take forward with them as they grow up.
Yeah. And I think as well, if you're saying to kids, hang up your coat, make sure that there's room to actually hang up a coat. I mean, if the coat rack is absolutely bursting at the seams and they can't hang up their coat, the effort falls down when even trying for the first time. So think through what you want them to do. Where do you want the school bags to go and the school shoes? Is there place to put them somewhere? Because if there's place, you can say, here's where I put your shoes. Here's where I put your shoes. Here's where you put your shoes. And after 5 times, you can say, I've told you now 5 times. Why is this not working? It's here you put your shoes. And you can kind of then go, what's going on here? But if there's no room to put anything anywhere, then the whole system falls down before you've even started. So it's a combination of decluttering and organizing and those routines all the time. And really, if you keep on with your decluttering, you will see those changes.
Yeah, we definitely see it with our members. All of a sudden, it's like, oh, all of a sudden, my partner's come on board as well, or my kids have come on board, and they're very much part of the journey and enjoying that journey as a family. So I suppose we haven't really got much practical advice because every family is different. But I think if you start with yourself, then hopefully other people will come on board.
Yes, stick with it, keep plodding on, and then those changes will happen. So listeners, that's it for this episode. We hope you've all enjoyed listening and are inspired to take action. And we appreciate you so much being here today and listening to us. If you've enjoyed this podcast, do share it with others. You can find the sharing buttons on the show notes page on our website. If you want more handy tips and advice from Leslie and I, you can find us in lots of places. We have a fab, supportive Facebook group called the Declutter Hub Community, which is a great starting point. And you can also find us on Instagram. We have a Facebook page and a YouTube channel as well. And you can just search for @Declutter Hub. We'd love to see you there. If you'd like to know more about our membership, have a look at members.declutterhub.com to find out more. If you don't want to miss the next podcast, subscribe to the Declutter Hub podcast and it will pop you into notifications each Friday. So thanks for listening and we'll see you next time.
Thanks for listening to this week's episode of the Declutter Hub podcast. Check out declutterhub.com for more inspiration and don't forget to tune in next week.